This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you to their store and they'll know I sent you there. Hi everyone, I'm Hone, and it's Wednesday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. Most of these videos are about constructed and use historical data to determine which cards in a particular category have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic, but that's not what I'm doing today. When a new set comes out, I do a limited set review where I give my thoughts on all the cards. This also usually results in an MTG Top 10 being taken over by the review. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 10 biggest bombs in the Zendikar Rising format. In Magic, being a bomb is a good thing. A bomb is the kind of card that completely alters the game in your favor when you play it, and they are also so powerful that you're willing to heavily alter your draft in order to play them. In this video, I'm going to give my 10 picks for the most powerful bombs in the format. In other words, these are the cards you most want to see in Pack 1 Pick 1 scenarios, or that you want to open in your sealed pool. Alright, let's get started with number 10. At number 10, I have Azri, Beacon of Unity. Azri gives you pretty efficient stats for the cost, especially because you'll probably be paying 4 or so mana for it, and there may even be some crazy scenarios where you play a party creature on turn 1 and turn 2, and then you can play Azri on turn 3, and that's just going to be nuts. I wouldn't count on that, but it is some awesome upside. What really makes her a bomb, though, isn't her stats or the cost reduction, it's her activated ability. This format has lots of cleric, rogue, warriors, and wizards, and when you activate that ability, you're pretty much guaranteed to draw at least one card, and drawing 2 is crazy. And yes, the mana isn't super easy, but paying 6 mana for that ability is very doable in most decks, and that's going to be cheap enough that Azri is just going to be an insane card advantage engine. If you play her and you're allowed to untap, it's going to be very hard for your opponent to ever beat you. And, that's all to go along with the fact that she's going to have efficient stats and be relatively cheap to cast. At number 9, I have Ancient Green Warden. If you watched my whole set review, you probably know that I didn't actually give the Green Warden a grade that would have made it a bomb. I gave it a B+, which is close to a bomb, but not quite. However, as people pointed out in the comments, something that I thought was how this card would work ended up not being true. In particular, I didn't think you could play double-faced lands from your graveyard, the ones that have a spell on one side, because I knew that those only count as spells when they're in your hand, but apparently, from your graveyard, you can actually play those lands. This means you can cast one of those double-faced modal cards as a spell early, play the Green Warden, and then get a land out of your graveyard. Additionally, something else I don't think I factored in is the fact that the blue-black deck is intent on milling people, and you're going to have lands in your graveyard more often than you might usually. And all of that is enough to give the Green Warden a little bit of additional value and make it into a bomb. What really makes it powerful is that it repeats landfall triggers. Getting 2 triggers out of your landfall cards is going to be crazy, and green has a ton of landfall. And that all comes with a reasonably efficient body that can block flyers. And to me, that means the Green Warden's a bomb. Even if you just have one creature with landfall, one card with landfall, repeating that trigger is going to give you a lot of value in addition to playing this reasonably efficient creature. At number 8, I have Grakmaw, Skyclave Ravager. This Hydra horror is all about +1/+1 counters, and it's black-green, and that's the +1/+1 counter archetype in this particular set. What makes Grakmaw great, though, is even if you have no other +1/+1 counter synergies around, it's an excellent card because it's a 3-mana 3/3 that when it dies will leave behind a 3/3, and that's easy to get a 2-for-1 out of. But then you add all the +1/+1 counter upside to Grakmaw, the fact that it gets larger if creatures with +1/+1 counters die, and the fact that the more +1/+1 counters it gets, the bigger the Hydra it leaves behind when it dies is. And then you have all the additional synergy of +1/+1 counter payoffs in the black-green color pair. And all of that is enough for me for Grakmaw to be a bomb. It has an amazing baseline and an insane ceiling. At number 7, I have Morag, Fury of Akum. So this is a 6-mana 6/6 that makes all your attacking creatures get +1/+0, and that means the turn you play it, it will have an impact on the board because it'll make your attackers better attackers. But what really makes it into a bomb, in addition to having that very nice baseline, is its landfall effect, which lets you have additional combat phases. And these creatures get larger the more times they attack in a single turn, so the second time they attack, they're going to get additional +2/+0. This is the kind of landfall trigger that just making it happen once probably means the end of the game for your opponent, especially if Morag himself is attacking. It's just going to make your board very imposing, even if you just have like 3 creatures and your opponent isn't really ready to block them effectively. Morag will mess them up quickly, in addition to the reasonable stats and the immediate impact it has on the board. At number 6, I have Emiria's Call, which is one of these double-faced modal cards. On one side, it's that spell, Emiria's Call, and on the other, it's a land, and you can choose which one you want to do with it. You can't transform these. They either enter one way or the other, and you make that decision. And Emiria's Call, the spell side, on its own is a very, very powerful effect. You know, first of all, you're paying 7 mana and you get 2 4/4 white Angel Warrior creature tokens. That already is a pretty good rate. And then you add the indestructibility clause, and it's likely that immediately you'll be able to do more on your turn than you could before you cast Emiria's Call, instead of having to wait until the next turn for your 2 4/4s to start doing stuff. That alone would probably make it a bomb, but it gets even better because of the land side. There are going to be some games where you're so desperate for a land, or you need that land to help you win the game, that you're going to want to play the land side of this instead of the spell side. Sometimes games just won't go long enough and you'll have to play this as a land. And while that's going to be kind of sad when you have to do it, it is just upside. In a game where you're not able to draw your 7th land anyway, you're going to be happy that you can make Emiria into a land if you need to, even though, you know, what really makes it a bomb is Emiria's Call. It is nice to have the flexibility here. At number 5, I have Leyline Tyrant. This dragon is already great just in terms of its stats. As a 4-mana 4/4 flying, that's a card you always play and a card you take highly, and then it has 2 really awesome additional effects. For one thing, you don't lose red mana from your mana pool as steps and phases end, which means you can ramp, which also means you can use your mana more effectively. And to synergize with that, when it dies, you can pay any amount of red mana, and when you do, it deals that much damage to any target. So he helps you keep that mana in your mana pool, and then, when he dies, you can use that mana to blast one of their creatures, or maybe just kill them. Basically, if you're playing Leyline Tyrant and you're allowed to keep it in play for a couple of turns and get some red mana going in your mana pool, it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to beat you. The one thing that kind of holds it back a little bit is the fact that playing it on turn 4 will sometimes not be that great because you won't have the mana lying around to get the value out of it dying, and if your opponent just removes it right away, it's not going to feel so good. But the additional upside that we just talked about is enough to overcome that, and this is definitely a bomb. At number 4, I have Drana, the Last Blood Chief. So, like a lot of these bombs, she has a very good base stats anyway as a 5-mana 4/4 flyer, but what really makes her a bomb is this additional ability she has that when you attack, you get to reanimate a creature from your graveyard and make it bigger. And yes, your opponent gets to choose what creature you get back, but whatever they have to give you back is going to be awesome value on top of this already efficient creature. Kind of like Leyline Tyrant, she's held back a little bit by the fact that the turn you play her, she doesn't make sure you get value right away. You have to attack with her to make that happen, so she's also a creature where if it dies the turn you play it, it's going to be really sad for you. But the upside here is insane. If she attacks once even, it's going to be hard for opponents to beat you, and twice makes it pretty much impossible, I think. She is, obviously enough, a great card. At number 3, I have Philath, World Sculptor. So Philath is great because no matter what happens, it's going to add to the board for you. And sure, getting a bunch of 0/1 plants isn't awesome, but it does mean you're getting something out of Philath, even when your opponent just kills him right away. And like a lot of these landfall cards, probably the best thing to do to make sure you get that value is to play Philath the same turn you can play a land, because if you do that, you'll make one of those plant tokens into a 4/5. And obviously, that's another landfall ability that if it triggers more than once, it's going to be really hard for your opponent to overcome the situation. At number 2, I have Zarathson, the Trickster. So Zarathson is a powerful rogue payoff. It's a 5-mana 4/4 with flash already. Again, a pretty reasonable rate. But what really makes it a bomb is its ability to sort of ninjutsu, which is an older mechanic, but it lets you return an attacking rogue to your hand, and then you put Zarathson in attacking and tapped. And, you know, that wouldn't be that great, except for the fact that Zarath has an insane trigger when it does combat damage to a player, and you get to return any of their permanents from their graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So this is another one of these cards that will, just one trigger will make it very difficult for your opponent to overcome the situation, and it will snowball and pretty much end the game within a few turns, generally speaking. And at number 1, I have Zagras, Thief of Heartbeats. This is an insanely efficient creature that will have an immediate impact on the board. Even if you're paying the full 6 for this, it's going to feel pretty good. It probably wouldn't quite be a bomb if you always had to pay 6 for it, but you're frequently going to be paying 4 or 5 for it, which is just crazy because it has flying, death touch, and haste, which means it's going to do damage to your opponent right away. That's one way to add to the board immediately. But on top of that, all your other creatures also gain Death Touch, and that suddenly will make your board, if you're behind, it will make all your creatures really good blockers, and if you're ahead, it will suddenly allow you to just attack with everything because the best your opponent can do is trade. Also kills Planeswalkers easily, and that doesn't hurt. There are 3 Mythic Rare Planeswalkers in this set. Might come up occasionally, but that doesn't really factor into what makes Zagras a bomb. It's just the sheer efficiency, the immediate impact on the board, by letting you attack with your creatures more readily in addition to having haste itself, and even being good defensively if that's what you have to do. So those are my picks for the 10 biggest bombs in Zendikar Rising. If you think I left any bombs out, let me know in the comments. If you want to make sure you catch the rest of my Zendikar Rising content, which will include draft videos in the very near future, don't forget to subscribe. And if you need to find the set review that I referenced a few times in this video, where I talk about every card, not just the crazy powerful mythic rares and rares, you should see the playlist for that set review on your screen now. Thanks for watching.